Wherever we start the search for the first race to inhabit the Earth, it is quite an undertaking. Did you notice we didn't say human race? Who was here first? Were they even human? What do we know about the origins of these ancient ancestors? Were they themselves aliens, or did they have contact with aliens? If so, what is the best evidence for this? In the next few minutes, we will look for answers to some of these difficult questions. Many historians, archaeologists, and theorists are fascinated by the idea of the existence of ancient races far older than Homo sapiens. Of course, to state an exact answer to the question would be speculation. However, there is much to be gleaned from the myths and ancient scriptures. Let's look at some of the best sources of ancient history. In many cultures, there are accounts of gods or higher beings who have shaped our world. Today, writers like Zekaria Sitchin are some of the main proponents of this stream of thought. Sitchin is well known for his ideas about aliens and the Anunnaki, who existed before Homo sapiens. He deals with the Sumerian tablets. His view is that the Sumerians were under the influence of extraterrestrial beings called Anunnaki. The researcher claims that the Anunnaki originated from a planet called Nibiru. Not only did they predate Homo sapiens, but they were also more technologically advanced. According to the writer, the Anunnaki created humanity and had relationships with humans. According to him, this explains the ancient structures and knowledge they had. In fact, structures like the pyramids, Atlantis, Stonehenge, and the Wemans hardly built themselves. There must have been some help. Another idea that Sitchin brings up is the possible genetic engineering of humans by the Anunnaki. A researcher's job is not to every scientist's taste. His ideas remain controversial and are widely criticized by mainstream scientists. Experts describe his work as pseudoscience, but others side with Zekaria, such as Graham Hancock, who uses archaeological evidence. Hancock is a British writer, and he directs our gaze to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. He argues that it is evidence of ancient and complex civilizations that existed before the last ice age, probably about 10,000 years ago. The stone structures at Göbekli Tepe are more advanced and predate all known civilizations. Swiss author Erich von Deniken points out that aliens have visited Earth in antiquity and have played an important role in the progress of human development. This agrees quite well with the Book of Enoch and other sources. The ancient astronaut hypothesis suggests that ancient texts, artifacts, and architecture are actually the remains of ancient extraterrestrials, or the results of human collaboration with them. We're not talking about a single isolated case here. The examples are numerous. The pyramids of Chichen Itza, Egyptian pyramids, the Nazca lines in Peru, Pumapunku, Moai on Easter Island, Stonehenge, and others. Defenders of the ancient astronauts argue that these architectural marvels demonstrate advanced technological sophistication that humans could not have possessed at the time. In fact, humans would not even have had the tools needed to build these structures. The simple deductive reasoning is that Homo sapiens would not have had the skills or tools to build these ancient structures at that time. Therefore, ancient aliens did. All this evidence points to a race of pre-Adamites that was more advanced and more sophisticated than Homo sapiens. Sitchin and other researchers rely heavily on ancient Sumerian tablets. So, what do these tablets actually offer? Most of you are familiar with the Sumerian clay tablets containing the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is believed to be the oldest literary work in the world, as we have covered it in our channel. While the Epic is a fascinating read in its own right, the Sumerian tiles appear to offer more. The tablets contain many stories about ancient gods, also known as Anunnaki. They also contain the Sumerian creation myth known as the Genesis of Eridu, which explains how the Sumerians believed the world was created. Some experts have argued that the Genesis of Eridu may contain a creation account that predates the biblical account in Genesis. The Eridu version briefly describes the creation of man, the establishment of authority over him, and the building of the first cities, including Eridu. A passage in Genesis column 2 reads as follows, "And let me advise him, let me make him superintend their labors, and let him teach the people to go on unerringly like cattle. When the royal scepter descended from heaven, the august crown and the royal throne were already lowered from heaven. He, that is the king, regularly performed to perfection the august divine offices and duties and laid the bricks of these cities in clean places. It certainly seems that humans were used with their labor to build structures and were obedient to these gods. In addition, the list of Sumerian kings offers interesting information, which again we have covered in detail in a full video. It lists the ancient kings of Sumer, the supposed length of their reigns, and the location of their kingdoms. Kings who ruled for thousands of years are recorded on the tablet. It includes prehistoric rulers and claims their reigns lasted thousands of years, including 8 kings who ruled a total of 241,200 years. This can have multiple explanations, but most of them conclude that these people in quotes were long-lived or not quite human. Is it possible that ancient astronauts established colonies among Homo sapiens? Possibly. Most scientists dismiss these reigns as fictional insertions, but there are a few anomalies for which they can offer no explanation. One example of an ancient alien or hybrid being is the pharaoh Akhenaten. The ruler's strange appearance has sparked much speculation among historians and supporters of ancient aliens. Ancient alien propagandists point to his elongated skull, long neck, overweight midsection, and chest to prove the existence of an ancient alien race. Historians accept a more conservative explanation. They argue that his strange appearance could be due to a genetic disorder similar to Marfan syndrome. More recently, some have added that Akhenaten may have been transgender. Sumerian tablets are a valuable piece of the puzzle of our origins, as the Sumerians are one of the earliest known civilizations to leave written records. These tablets attest to the fact that one of the oldest civilizations known to man was created by gods or divine beings. In addition, many other ancient mythologies contain stories similar to those of the Sumerian tablets. The Greeks, Egyptians, and Hindus derived their creation stories and histories from the ancient gods. Even the Jews have their own edition for observers, though they were never seen as creators, but rather as rebels. All of these myths contain information about how these gods possessed remarkable knowledge and abilities. These figures, whether you call them Titans as the Greeks did, Anunnaki as the Sumerians did, Watchers as Enoch did, or Devas as in Hindu legends, were often portrayed as having supernatural abilities and knowledge beyond that of humans. That is, a narrative model we see all over the world. For example, the ancient pottery on display at the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad. These ceramic pieces depict figures that look like aliens. Some of them date back to 6000 BC. We see similar images in India. In the ancient temples of Vijayanagara, we find intriguing alien-like images carved on their stonework. This includes depictions of flying humans and alien-like figures. It is clear that gods or contact with aliens was a global phenomenon, not an isolated incident. Most ancient cultures were aware of their presence and influence on humanity. Atlantis is perhaps the best example where mythology and evidence intersect. In addition to being an architectural marvel, Atlantis was inhabited by an advanced civilization. Plato claimed that Atlantis and its inhabitants predated him by some 9,000 years. This puts them right in the time frame of the Anunnaki. Plato provides additional information about the interaction of the gods with humans and the fact that each god has a certain portion of the earth allotted to him. In an excerpt from the Timaeus, Plato mentions a similar theme of these gods interacting and intermarrying with humans. The narrative, which was very long, began thus. I have already mentioned when I spoke of the divisions of the gods that they divided the whole earth into parts of different sizes and built themselves temples and performed sacrifices. And Poseidon, receiving as his portion the island of Atlantis, created children with a mortal woman and settled them in a part of the island which I am now about to describe. Just as the city of Atlantis is documented with evidence of the rule of gods in the works of Plato, similarly we find documented evidence in Hindu texts, particularly the Vedas, of the Vimanas. The Vimanas are flying machines, some of which look very much like what we would today call a flying saucer. Some theorists have come to believe that Vimanas were real technological devices. But did they have extraterrestrial origins? That has not yet been clarified. China also has its own source that speaks of celestial visitations, contacts, and possible technology transfer. The bamboo annals, the Book of Documents, and the oracle bone inscriptions are some of the Chinese texts that have such references. We have discussed some of these records in a detailed video on the channel. In addition, we have already mentioned ancient Hebrew literature such as Genesis and the Book of Enoch, which describe the descent of heavenly beings to earth. Going further, we can say that it is as if what Sitchin would call the Anunnaki, Enoch calls the Watchers. The Bible and Enoch state that the angels, or Watchers, were created by Yahweh or the Almighty. They were appointed by Him to guide and teach mankind, but chose instead to rebel and lead mankind astray. Enoch goes on to describe how they taught the people various skills, crafts, and heavenly secrets. Enoch mentions the following: "And Azazel taught men to make swords, daggers, shields, and breastplates. He showed them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets of gold and silver, and ornaments, and the art of making up their eyes and beautifying their faces, and the most precious and choice stones, and all kinds of colored dyes. And the world changed forever. And there was great wickedness and much fornication, and they went astray, and all their ways became corrupt. And besides this, their leader, Shemyaza, taught incantations against the mind and the use of kut plant roots. Armaros taught magical skills and the release of incantations, and Barakel taught astrologers, and Kokabel taught divinations of the stars, and Tamiel taught divinations of the weather, and Shahariel taught the way of the moon. And they all began to reveal these secrets to their wives and to their children. And in the destruction of the earth, the people cried out, and their voices reached to heaven." Despite the many theorists and independent researchers who support the idea of ancient aliens, a significant number of counter-arguments remain. Due to the high speculation and lack of concrete evidence, the scientific community has downplayed most of the theorists' work, and these theories have been dismissed as unfounded. Often, when it comes to explaining ancient technologies, the scientific community applies Occam's razor by sticking to the most primitive explanation. The scientific argument is that ancient technological advances were obtained through reasonable incremental technological progress rather than through the intervention of ancient aliens. The same logic is applied by scholars when it comes to the myths and legends of these civilizations. They argue that these stories are simply fictional and allegorical to teach values and lessons, not to document ancient encounters with extraterrestrials. According to scientists, we currently have no scientific evidence for the existence of extraterrestrials, and they cannot be linked to ancient technological phenomena. According to Professor Sarah Seeger, an astrophysicist and planetary scientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and author of the book The Smallest Lights in the Universe, there is simply no evidence at the moment. Niku Madhusudan, professor of astrophysics and exoplanetary science at Cambridge University, gives a similar answer saying, "We have no evidence. I don't think we have clear evidence of extraterrestrial life yet." Leaving aside the basic science, we can see that much of the evidence, such as myths and unexplained ancient technological advances, contains many possibilities, including that of the existence of ancient alien races that preceded humans or coexisted with them. Technological advances in archaeology, comparative mythology, and even astrobiology have more than once already proven things that were completely denied by scientists until a few years ago. Therefore, in a few short years, we may come to a very different conclusion. If the subject is interesting to you and you want to delve deeper into it, you will certainly want to learn about the fact that angels and demons are in fact ETs. But more on these revelations in the video you see to the left of your screens.